Beautiful. Thank you so much. We are holy. Just before I came up here, I was passed a note. We've had one other congregant who's passed away just this past week, and that is our beloved Bob Rock, who might be giving Eden a run for the money as the oldest member here. But he passed away this past week. And the note was that we're going to be doing a memorial service sometime in March for Bob, so that you know that. And it makes me think, I want to take a moment, because we've had several people in the congregation pass. We've had several people who are close to people in the congregation pass recently. And some people have gone through holidays where it's the first time without someone significant. And so I want to take a moment to, as long as we're in this beautiful, sacred, holy space from you guys, to move into our hearts. Join me in that and just simply bless each of these people, their families, each person who has lost a loved one this past year. And I simply surround each member of the family, each beloved in love, knowing that God's love is ever present, everywhere present, always present. That it's okay to feel the grief of the loss of the physicality, and at the same time know the joy of their expansion to whatever is next from this life. And we live in that yin-yang energy, that dynamic. And so I bless each person on their journey. At the same time, I'd also like us to join with our beloved member Kathy Kukin and Matt Childs, who have moved from here to Arizona, as Kathy's daughter, adult daughter, has disappeared over a month ago now and has been not heard from for a month. And there's no foul play suspected, but just simply gone. And just simply join me in knowing that wherever her daughter is, she is present in spirit. And so all that needs to be known, all that needs to be resolved, all that needs to be brought to the surface regarding that, regarding her daughter and that whole situation is done so that there is knowing on Kathy's part and blessing each of us in that process. And so it is. Thank you. This year we're looking at our values. Last year we looked at creating a world that works for all, and we're kind of extending that this year into looking at living our values in the world. How do we do that? Because as we live our values, our true and authentic values, we do create a world that works for all, including ourselves. And so this month we're going to be looking at really science values, our values in Science of Mind. We're looking at the beginning of the Science of Mind textbook, where Ernest lays down in 4 chapters really the core of the entire teaching. And so today I'm going to be talking about the first chapter. Next week, while I'm in a sleeping bag and freezing somewhere in the Santa Cruz Mountains, Reverend Sue is going to be talking about the second chapter. And then if I thaw out and make it back after the teens, I'll be talking about the third chapter and the fourth chapter. So, our first chapter is called The Thing Itself. Ernest Holmes, who was our founder, our founding teacher, and who wrote the Science of Mind textbook, his brother Fenwick said that in his textbook, Ernest taught that everyone is a center in the divine mind. Each of us is a center in the divine mind. A point of God-conscious life, love, truth, and action. That the invisible passes into the visible through our faith in it. He himself had passed through questioning to belief, through belief by practice and through demonstration to faith. And now he had arrived at conviction, a realization of the presence. And that is the journey for all of us, to move from questioning to beginning to have belief, to knowing in a deeper sense of faith, and finally to know our connection, our oneness with the presence, our oneness with the presence. And so we began with this idea of the thing itself. And Fenwick goes on to say that Ernest considered the Plotinus. Plotinus was a Neoplatonic Greek philosopher from a few years ago. Ernest considered that Plotinus's concept of man as a microcosm who embraces the qualities of all orders of creation provides a rational explanation of this. And this is Plotinus's quote, the radiation of all things from God and their ultimate return to it. The first emanation being the nous, Greek word, N-O-U-S, not the rope, but the N-O-U-S, the nous, or the thing in itself. And the thing itself is that which exists prior to sensory perception. It exists prior to anything else. It is the first cause. It is self-existent. It doesn't depend on anything else for its existence. But from that emanates all sensory perception. And so that's where from that emanates all of us. Plotinus says, I do not argue. I love that. And I have to practice that more often. I do not argue. I contemplate. And as I contemplate, I let fall the seeds of thought into the mirror of the mind, which then becomes the mirror of matter. Isn't that beautiful? We let fall our thoughts into the mirror of mind, which becomes the mirror of matter. Plotinus had this idea that the world in a way was a mirror, and that when we look in a mirror, we know that the image we're seeing is not real. It's not really there, okay? We're just looking at a reflection. But he said, what if the appliance, the mirror itself was invisible, was so vast that we didn't know we were working with a mirror, and we began to believe that what we were looking at was real. We began to believe the images. And so our thoughts fall from our mind, the mirror of our mind, into the mirror of matter and show up as that. So this is the first of the teachings. Thought is creative. Thought, your thought, my thought, all thought, is creative. Ernest begins by boldly stating the nature of the thing itself. He makes a statement about it that is different than what was thought in his day by many people. And he says, the divine plan is one of freedom. Bondage is not God ordained. Freedom. We're here to express the freedom of who we are, of who we came here to be. We are free to be whoever and whatever we want to be. There is no bondage, there is no lack, limitation, stuckness in the divine. God has no agenda for us other than our freedom, our ability to express. Isn't that cool? We have this freedom. And I like to say the good news, bad news of that is that just as a child is free to express itself and once in a while falls down and skins its knee, we do the same sometimes, don't we? We fall down and skin our knees as we're learning how to express ourselves more fully and more freely. And like the children, we get back up and keep on going and keep on playing with this. So we are here to express. He then introduces the next aspect of the thing itself, and he says that this is a universe that is a universe of love, infinite, deep, total love. You're immersed, I am immersed in love, this infinite love. Every mystic who has ever touched the divine has had that experience of deep, deep, deep love, unconditional. Doesn't matter who you are, what you've done, any of that. Deep love. But it is also then one of law. The law is cause and effect. The law is that what I put out comes back to me. As I sow, I reap. It's been said in so many ways. So it's this love and it's this law, and he says this is the core of the teaching. This is the core of the teaching. As we truly understand this, we truly transform our lives. We approach love through law. How do I get to experience that love? I'm already in it, but how do I get to consciously experience it? I get to consciously experiencing it by learning through this law how to approach it, how to be in it. And so I learned, I used in the first service the metaphor of Bill Murray's movie Groundhog's Day, one of my favorite metaphysical movies. And he gets to do the day over and over and over and over and over again until all that he's putting out is love. And he puts out a lot of other stuff early in the movie, if you've ever seen that movie. Okay? But eventually he comes under the understanding of the law. And that is what we're here to do, is to come under the understanding, the operation of the law, to be in alignment with that. And when we do, we open up automatically to the love. In the Bible, when the young man asks Jesus, what do I have to do to have life eternal? Jesus' first reply to the young man is, follow the law. It's the basis upon which everything else is built. Follow the law. And so we are here to be in alignment with those laws. To open the door to experience the love of the universe, we have to follow the laws of the universe. And to follow the law, we must understand the nature of the law, right? We need to understand what are the laws, how does it work? So Ernest says the law is impersonal. That is, it plays no favorites. It works for this person exactly the same as it works for this person. I used to like to make the analogy of the law of gravity. The law of gravity works for everybody, right? And if you take somebody who's really good and you take somebody who's really evil and shove them both off of a tall building, gravity doesn't sit there and go, well, you're a really bad person, so you're going to have a really bad experience, and you're a wonderful, beautiful, sacred person, and I'm going to treat you differently. The law just acts the same way for everyone. Okay? And so this principle says that the law works the same for all of us, that it is impersonal, it plays no favorites. And it also has no agenda. The law doesn't have an agenda for you and me. It doesn't care. Just as the light in the movie projector does not care what movie I'd run in front of it, okay, it's just being the light, it's just shining, that's what it does. The law has no agenda. It doesn't care what you and I put in front of it. It just is being. And Ernest goes on to say, it's simple. This process is simple. Throughout the whole of the Science of Mind textbook, he talks about, getting rid of the ponderosity of thought, one of my favorite phrases, and understanding and perceiving the simplicity of this law and how it works. What I put into it is what comes back to me. Period. And my thought is creative. He says there's nothing supernatural about it. There's nothing that is miraculous in the sense of miracle, in the sense of it works outside of the law. See, if a person walked into this room who had time traveled from 200 years ago and watched us turn on the lights, that would seem miraculous to that person, right? Because they wouldn't understand it. But we understand that we're following the law of electricity and applying the law of electricity. We understand how that works. So we understand that we're just aligned with the law, even though to a person who doesn't have that understanding of how the law works, it looks miraculous or mysterious. And so sometimes we experience things that look miraculous or mysterious, but they're just the law being applied in ways that we may not yet understand. We always follow the law of the universe, and we have to grow in our understanding of that law. And then he talks about the mind. Our mind, yours and my mind, is an individualization of the one mind. See, in a way, you and I don't have a mind separate from all the other minds. If somebody has accused you of being mindless, they're true, they're right. Thank them for it. We're all part of one mind. We all tap into the same one mind. We're all immersed in this one mind. We create individually how we use it. We choose how to individualize it. The quote from Nietzsche at the end of it says that life expresses values through what we value. We get to determine it. We aim the life energy by our choices, by our thoughts. But we are individualized expressions of one mind. And the mind creates through contemplation. It creates through contemplation. I do not argue, I contemplate. And so what is it that I contemplate? That's what shows up in my mind, and that's what shows up in my life as I contemplate it. Ernest talks about our thought as prayer. Prayer is a movement of thought within the mind of the one praying for a specific purpose. This is one of the things I love about this teaching. This is not a theoretical teaching. This is not a how many angels can dance on the head of a pin teaching. This is a how can I take this and apply this to create a life that works for myself and all around me. How can I use this teaching? How can I apply it day to day in the bigness of life, in the smallest of details of life? How can I use it to find my lost car keys? How can I use it to create a powerful, beautiful relationship? How can I use it to be a powerful, living expression of the divine in this world? It's practical. How do I use it? How can I use it? We're going to look at that in the next couple of weeks. Then he goes on to say that our mind, the mind, has two aspects. It's the same mind, but there's two aspects of it. The first one is what he calls the objective or conscious or choosing mind. It's the part of us that chooses. What do I want? Consciously chooses. And then the other is the subjective or unconscious mind, which brings whatever it is that we've chosen into form and expression. It's that mind. And oftentimes what we forget is we have deposited choices from, say, early in childhood, or perhaps even before we took existence on this planet, if you believe in that, into that subconscious mind, and it is continuing to express and express and express until we consciously choose to change it. And the good news is we can change our mind. It's the motto of our teaching: change your thinking, change your life. We can change that. And when we start to change it, we start to create something new in our lives. We have limitless power to create. We have access to a limitless power. Ernest says that when we learn to trust the universe, we should be happy, prosperous, and well. When we learn to trust the universe, we shall be happy, prosperous, and well. Any place that I'm out of alignment with that, I notice that when I get down to it, I find that that's a place where I'm not trusting the universe. And so then I move and I sink into greater trust of the universe. To learn to think is to learn how to live. For our thoughts go into a medium that is infinite in its ability to do and be. A person, by thinking, can bring into their experience whatsoever they desire, if they think correctly and become a living embodiment of those thoughts. This is not done by holding thoughts, but by knowing the truth. We don't have to hold on to thoughts. We have to simply stand in knowing the truth. I love it. A recent example I saw of that was in the movie Rogue One. And I don't know how many of you have seen that yet. It's the latest of the Star Wars movies. There's a character in there who continually walks around saying, I am in the Force and the Force is in me. I am in the Force and the Force is in me. I am in the Force and the Force is in me. He's continually speaking truth, the reminder of what the truth is. Emma Curtis Hopkins says, speak the truth, speak it rapidly, consciously, constantly. Tell ourselves that highest truth that I can know in any situation. I am in God, and God is in me. So we speak that truth. That is our purpose. So this week, what I want to invite us to do, two things. The first one is notice what your thinking has created. And what your thinking has created is your life around you. And some of that we sit there and go, that's wonderful. And some of it we sit there and go, yeah, not so sure. Okay? Just notice what you've created with your thinking. Notice how you've applied this process already, because we all do this process constantly, whether we know it or not, whether we're conscious of it or not. What have I created? Where have I created freedom? And celebrate that. Pat yourself on the back. And where have I created bondage, and say, you know what? I'm going to change that. I no longer need to live in bondage in that area of my life. Don't beat yourself up. Just notice what you've created and choose to change it. Secondly, pick an area where you'd like to experience greater freedom and contemplate that freedom as your new reality. Contemplate that freedom as your new reality. As Ernest says, we have to become our thoughts. We become the living embodiment of our thoughts. Yesterday we were doing the intentions retreat, which several of you were at. And part of the process was looking at the intention we wanted to create, and then imagining ourselves at the end of the year having already created that intention. It's already done. And then looking backwards from that place and remembering how we got here. So I'm already here with what it is that I want to create. I'm already embodying that. I loved it when a number of years ago we used to have two organizations in religious science. One was known as International Centers for Spiritual Living, and the other one was known as United Centers for Spiritual Living, ICSL, UCSL. And the adults spent probably 10 years talking about, maybe 15 years, talking about and working with how do we bring the organizations together, what are we going to do with our money, how do we do the education process, all this stuff, right? The teens got hold of it. They said, oh, the heck with all that. We're going to take our money and pull it all together. You know, the international teens, the United teens, they just got together at a conference and said, put it all together. We're already there. We're already there. And they have this joke that said, we're not ICSL or UCSL, we are we CSL. There wasn't an I, there wasn't a you, there was a we. And they were living in this vision already while the adults were still trying to figure out how to get there. And that's how we do this. That's how we embody the thoughts. Yes. That is how we do this. We embody the thought. How am I already living in this vision? I'm already here. And so I invite you this week to take something and be already there. Not have to figure out how do I get there and stuff like that. But to actually see yourself, experience yourself, know yourself as already there and embody that. Let yourself become that freedom. I want to close with a quote from Ernest, from The Science of Mind. It says, the mind we discover within is the mind that governs everything. As we go deeper within ourselves, as we open up and explore the mind, our mind, we discover the one mind that creates everything. This is the thing itself, and we should recognize its simplicity. And I would say its beauty. And its beauty expresses as you, as me, and as all that we create. Let's move into prayer. So I know that there is this one mind, this one life, this one and only one. And whether we call it the thing itself, whether we call it God, whether we call it Spirit, whether we call it the Tao, whatever name we give it is beyond all the names. It's just this oneness. It is life, it is love, it is light, it is joy. It is abundant, wealthy expression. It is creativity, it is wisdom, it's beauty. And because that mind is all that there is, that one life is all there is, my life, each of our lives, is within that one life. We already are the life, the light, the love, the joy, the abundant wealth, the creativity, the wisdom, and the beauty of the divine. We are that already right here, right now. And so I speak my word that we wake up and recognize that so much more fully than ever before. Wherever we've been at, there's so much more of this beauty, of this nature to recognize and to become and express. We live in a field of infinite good. And we have no bondage. In truth, there is no bondage. And so we let go of any part of ourselves that has chosen to limit and move into freedom. So that each of us is an embodiment of that freedom, of that highest and greatest expression of life. This is who we are. And in gratitude for knowing that this is our truth and that we are saying yes to this and that we are opening up to this ever more fully, I simply release this word into that which we call the law, letting it manifest it, letting it show up in the most beautiful, perfect ways possible for each of us. And it does so. And we allow it to be, and we accept it and claim it for our own as we say together, and so it is. Bless you. Thank you.